Welcome to Back to Paranormal, the show that talks about things that go bump in the night and other unexplainable things. And my name is Brian Mitchell, and I am here with my co-host,
Marjorie Stewart.
Marjorie Stewart. You're looking fine tonight.
Thank you, as are you.
Yes, and we thank you so much. And I'm over here. We both had a little cordial.
We did.
Like I said before, this is a show where we talk about spiritual stuff and paranormal things and things that are unexplainable. You know, we've been reviewing a couple of different shows, but today we're going to review a book.
Yes. Hello from Heaven.
Hello from Heaven. This is by Bill and Judy Guggenheim, and it's been in print for, I think, over 25 years.
It's amazing.
The book, Hello from Heaven, is basically people who passed on. And then people who are contacted by people who are no longer around, at least in this realm. And the book outlines about, 10, maybe more, different types of...
Different categories of what the Guggenheims classify as ADCs, which is after-death communications. And it's about, I think they interviewed like 3,000 people.
I think it was 2,000 people they interviewed, but 3,000 accounts. Oh. And they whittled that all down to the best, which is about a little bit over 350 that they put in the book. And some of these accounts are like half a page, or they could be more than that. They could be 2 pages. The book is almost 400 pages long, which is a pretty hefty little paperback there. You can get this book in hard copy.
It is. It's actually very dense because each chapter deals with a different category or a different, I guess, variety of ADC. So
right.
Whether it's, something that's something olfactory, something which you smell, tactile, something which you feel, audio, something that you hear either externally or internally, a voice, and, visual, full visual, partial visual, where a loved one, close friend, family member is trying to communicate, most often a message of relief or love,
yes,
peace, and just overall comfort and consolation to the living party left behind.
Right.
And the amount of research that the Guggenheims undertook to cull 300 plus very valid sounding experiences from people all over, the America or the world?
I think between the United States and Canada. So it's not even worldwide. Yeah. There might be a few in there but that's what it says in the book.
Yeah.
That they got it from the United States and Canada. Bill and Judy Guggenheim, Bill Guggenheim, his background was basically he was in the stock market, and he didn't believe in the afterlife.
He was an atheist, a self-professed atheist.
Yeah, and he basically had an experience which changed his thinking, and then he started to kind of seek out the stuff. And I think that's what happens. That's something that I did because I had a lot of different things happen that I couldn't explain. And what I was trying to say before was every chapter has something that resonates with me because I had something similar happen from each one of these chapters. So
firsthand to you.
Firsthand, yeah. And you've had stuff that's happened. I don't think you've had something for every chapter, but you've had...
No.
But
I have had a smattering of really very interesting things. But what I found, as I was reading this book, Brian, it was like each chapter reminded me of something that you have related to me. And it made me think, because I know you personally, like the difficulty it must be, the challenges that must have presented themselves to these individuals who are trying to communicate in words and explain something which is really, in fact, inexplicable.
Right.
And also the courage and that goes along with that.
Yeah, I think putting out a book like this, you know, the books are very common now. There's so many books out there now of different people's experiences. A lot of the most profound ones come from people that were in the medical or scientific field, and then totally just switched them around, totally.
Like Bill Guggenheim.
Bill Guggenheim, and another book we're going to review is by Eben Alexander, who was a brain surgeon, and he didn't believe in any of this. He didn't believe that, he actually came from a family that I think the father was a preacher, and he was totally switched around because he went to school and he figured, no, when you die, that's it, and and you're no more. That was his thinking, and the same thing with Bill Guggenheim.
Right. Bill Guggenheim describes it as, we are batteries, and when the juice runs out, you go in the trash. Lovely. Lovely, Bill.
Well, that was his thinking, but that's not his thinking anymore. He's totally switched around. And then he ended up writing this book, and he actually goes around. He talks about this book, and he talks about after-death experiences and other things.
What I'm so flummoxed by, just in general, and I'm not trying to pick on William Guggenheim here, okay? Or Eben Alexander.
Right.
But you have so many people who are capable of very complex intellectual thought. Brain surgeon, chemist, a man of numbers like Mr. Guggenheim here.
Right.
And then when it comes to just life and death, they are compelled to reduce it to something so linear.
Well, they did.
But why, when their brain is capable of clearly so much more? I think it's fair, but that's just me.
I think it's a good point, and but then they changed.
I'm not stringing them up from the cottonwoods here. I'm just it perplexes me that the people in my life,
right?
Forget Dr. Alexander and Mr. Guggenheim. Okay,
people in your life,
in my life, whom I've come across, who are highly intelligent, who are capable of just dimensional math, etc., what have you.
Right.
That they say, when you're done, you're done. I don't believe in God. I don't believe in that. And that's fine. I'm not here to tell you what to believe.
Right.
But to just to not even entertain the possibility. And that's why what impressed me about this book was how many sentences in this book were written in question form.
Yeah.
So many questions. And without the compunction to have to answer it with a certitude.
Right. This is my theory on that. I think when you are born, I think you're open to everything. I think most kids, little kids, I think they tap into that world that is not part of the world here, and that's where the imagination goes, and that's where they have imaginary playthings and stuff like that. I think they're wide open, but I think as we're beaten down in school with numbers and science and things of this world, and it comes to a place when somebody's really trying to become whatever they're going to become, whether it's a scientist or somebody on Wall Street who's working with numbers and all this. Once you get beaten down with this world, you totally throw away everything else. The spiritual stuff, all that stuff just goes out. And if it doesn't make perfect logical sense to them, then basically it's just cast aside.
It doesn't serve them.
It doesn't serve them. And so they don't see it. They don't believe it. You know, you can't really see, you can't see the air you breathe. You can't, you know, water is clear, you know, and you can't, love is something you cannot grab. It's not something that you can see. You could see it in the eyes of an individual, you know, how much they love you. You can feel that in your heart, but it's not something tangible that you can hold. And some of these people just feel like,
yeah, well, but neither is money.
Yeah.
People think that it is. But
yeah.
But then again, and there's not one single physicist out there who would disagree with me, love is the one thing that transcends all space and time.
That's right. That's right. So my point is, those people tend to get wrapped up in what they're doing, and all that other stuff goes out, you know? All that thinking, the spiritual thought, religion goes out. Sometimes love leaves their life because they're so focused on that one thing, you know, whatever they're working on, and they don't believe that there's anything else. So it's just that's what I think. I think people who are generally creative are more spiritual, because they're using things from their mind that's maybe not necessarily something that's logical. You know, they're going into their imaginations and they're pulling things out and stuff like that. And I think they're delving into this world that, you know, a scientist may not. And I'm not saying they're not creative, because a scientist does have to be creative, but as long as it fits into a box, you know, and it's the same thing with, you know, the medical field. It's the same way. In
general.
In general,
and I think that's a very good understanding of it. I mean, I have a couple brothers, and one of them is a doctor, and he does say never underestimate the human spirit. Mm-hmm. It triumphs.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that about all doctors.
No,
but
I don't hear that you're saying that, but you're answering my question, and I think that's a valid argument. It's always confused me. It's because my late father was an extraordinarily intelligent individual, and one of his favorite things to say to us, which was an adequate answer, but a little frustrating to a child, but one that I've come to adopt myself throughout my life, was his reply quite often was, "That's a possibility." Right. And I've assumed that. I've picked up that mantle. Now, okay, can we go sledding down the hill today? Can I have a smiley face cookie, please? That's a possibility. Right. That was usually the answer. I choose to adopt that phrase for kind of more broad, abstract concepts, because you know, I like to believe that the world is larger than that life is larger than what we see. It's not all right in front of you. So many people say, "I'll believe it when I see it," and I appreciate that and I understand that. But I also say, if you're closed off to it, is it actually going to come to you? If a tree falls, does it make a sound in the middle of nowhere? Right. That kind of thing. Sure. But it was nice to read all of Bill Guggenheim's questions. This man of certainty, this man of black and white and linear thinking, to have that all capitulated by just a smattering of experiences in his own life. Right. And then also, of course, his relationship with Dr. Elizabeth
Kubler-Ross.
Yes, sorry. It's a difficult name.
No, that's no. That's
I
all right.
Apologize.
Well, wasn't she a nurse? She was a nurse, right?
I think a psychiatrist.
Oh, okay.
And she was in the treatment of the terminally ill.
Right. And she experienced a lot of stuff. So she actually believed, she did her own studies, and she believed that the soul goes on And that's really what this book is about. But he, Bill Guggenheim, actually studied with her. And I guess he went to some, I think it was in the 70s, he went to some lecture.
A retreat.
A retreat, there you go.
Yeah.
And
he didn't want to go, but his wife, Judy, said, I really think you need to go.
Interesting, right?
I think that his wife had always surmised that her husband had a deep-seated sorrow, a grief that he never addressed from a loss that he experienced, the loss of his father at a very young age.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's very interesting. I mean, it's important.
It was that retreat that was the impetus for him to start this research.
Right.
Because he went to this retreat and
okay.
One individual participant who was trying to work through grief came and spoke of their ADC, their form of ADC.
Okay.
Okay. Teenage kid, maybe on high, dabbling, what have you. And then another,
or maybe not.
Or maybe not. This is what he was grappling with. And then another participant in the retreat got up and spoke about their personal experience with a communication from that next place.
Right.
Okay. And he chalked it up.
Mm-hmm.
But then the doctor, why do I have such a hard time with this person's name? Shame on me.
Elizabeth Kubler-Ross.
Thank you, sir. Then she came up.
Yeah.
I'm an inadequate co-host here, folks.
No, you're not. You're great. You're great.
She stood
Isn't she wonderful? She's wonderful.
Give him a minute to applaud.
Here, I think I have an applaud thing here. Somewhere on the button over here. I'm slow.
Anyway, she contributed her own experience. She said, look, I had just about had it. I was at my wit's end dealing with the terminally ill. I couldn't take it anymore. It was a yoke too hard to bear, too heavy for me. And I felt like, when you feel like you're shouting at the rain. And she had an experience after work. Mrs. Johnson, a former patient of hers, came to her and encouraged her to continue with her work. Your work is not done. And she, in a very detailed fashion, conveyed her personal experience. And then I think that Mr. Guggenheim began to capitulate.
Right.
And so he stayed, and I believe he said it was the happiest several days he had ever had in his life, which says a lot.
It does.
And then time went by, and he had another, I believe, a vocal ADC.
Yes.
An audio ADC, which was a familiar voice to him, and it said, you have to go through with this work. And that is when he and his I guess at this time ex-wife, but what have you, Judy Guggenheim, decided to take that baton, and they set up the foundation to people who, of their own volition, devote 7 years and countless hours and money and effort to writing the composition of a book like this. You have to laud them, whether you believe it or not. And the pure purpose of having done so was to provide people with some sense of comfort, in order so that he felt that it might help us live a more courageous and full life without being terrified of what comes next.
Interesting.
I believe that it is very interesting.
It is, and like I was saying before, I can safely say that every single chapter I've experienced something like this. I think a lot of people have had experiences and they refuse to believe it. They think it might be their imagination, or they think it's a coincidence. And I've always had a problem with that, with people that kind of do that. Because it's like, for me, I keep seeing my father's birthday. And it's really bizarre. And I think you've seen it too. Because you'll text me, and then you'll be texting me and not looking at the time. And it'll be, when you text me, it'll be like his birth date. And it's funny, I was just checking the levels before on this. When we started, I like to just check it once in a while and see the time. The time was 13:33, which is basically the day and the year of my father's birthday. And so that was just really, that's something that just happened while we were doing this podcast. So anyway, I think everybody, I don't know the exact numbers, but I think it's somewhere between 35 and 40% of people around the world believe in after-death communication. They believe they've been contacted by somebody. And so I think those numbers have gone up quite a bit. They're probably even more so since they came up with those numbers, because these books on after-death communication are just all over bookstores now. And I think everybody's writing something now. I think back in the past, nobody would actually write a book about this because people would consider them crazy.
No, I mean, ghost stories were something you told around a campfire to make the children stay in their tents or a cave or whatever.
But there are there were stories. Have them stay in their cave.
Go to that cave and stay there.
Yeah, but there are stories that go back which talk about ghostly things after somebody passed away. Like the most famous is Lincoln.
I think the most famous is Jesus Christ, but
there you go. Okay, there
Abraham Lincoln.
I think okay. No, you're right. But I'm talking about not somebody who is the child of God.
Cicero wrote about an after death communication. It's on paper thousands of years.
Yeah. But, I think Abraham Lincoln, they believe still haunts the White House.
They say a lot of people haunt the
White House. Probably. But communicating to, I guess a widow, the widow, the wife and
married
family. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and also I think that makes a lot of sense because that's a place of a tremendous amount of energy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Where like some real life and death decisions have to be made.
Absolutely.
A great deal of strain and pressure and
So you read this book, you went through Hello from Heaven, and it's an enjoyable book, I think.
It is.
I think it's a very
dense,
emotional book.
But it's quick. It's the hits just keep on coming. I mean,
well, 350.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have very, very, no one's yammering on and on. It's very quick.
It's hitting the points.
Mm-hmm.
I was sitting at home. We just buried our son, and then
Yeah.
And then I was doing something, and all of a sudden the door opened up, and there he was. Stuff like that, or something that was related to, maybe not related to him, something that was familiar to him. All of a sudden, showed up on the floor like a photograph, like out of nowhere.
The ones that really kind of resonated the most with me were ones where they were just the behavior was just so specific. Mm-hmm. Like this one girl was sitting on the edge of her bed and mourning the loss of her best friend and just inconsolable. And she suddenly felt a hand go up the back of her head and tousle the back of her hair.
Right.
And that was something that he used to do to her to get her out of a funk, to kind of snap her out of a funk.
Right.
And she just says, my spine went ramrod straight, and I couldn't believe it was like he was sitting right next to me.
Yeah.
And it's just so specific. And other ones where, sort of in the olfactory, which chapter, where you catch a scent that is just unmistakably that person. There was one where a woman had just lost her grandmother, but she had a newborn baby, and she was feeding the baby, sitting in a chair, very, very sad. And suddenly she gets the smell of her grandmother's perfume, a really oldsy-timesy perfume called Blue Danube. And she looks in the direction where this is coming from, and she's trying to find it, and then suddenly the baby stops feeding and turns their head and just stares in this one direction, this newborn baby,
Right.
and just would fixate it on this one spot in the room.
Right.
And that's kind of almost like having a witness, to that.
Absolutely. So. I had a dog that did that.
Really?
Yeah, that all of a sudden the dog would just stop. It was a den area. It would just look in one corner of the room and just be fixated, and there was nothing there. Because I checked.
Often, or just those?
No, it was just one day. Just the dog started barking at the corner of the room. And there was nothing above that room was the attic. Nothing got into the attic. It was just fixated on the corner of the room. Upper corner of the room, just barking like crazy.
The pet behavior, I'm very inclined to believe.
Yeah. But what's funny is I had something happen to me where it was almost like in that same area. It was almost like, it's hard to explain, but it was like supernatural sparkles up in that area as well. And I had to blink and look at it. It wasn't a reflection. It was just like this weird sparkly type thing going on. I thought it was my eyesight. It wasn't. I mean, it was definitely something going on.
Because that's never happened to you before or since?
No, nothing like that.
Interesting.
Nothing like that. Some of these experiences, you don't experience. Well, it's not like you experience this stuff every day. And, I've had a ton of stuff happen to me.
Well, definitely every chapter I read, I was like, Brian's had that happen.
Yeah.
He's had that happen. But see, and how hard it is to put it down on paper, because you're writing a book about all of these things.
I'm writing a book about all these things.
And it's challenging, no doubt.
It is, because just to explain it, just to find a way to explain it so that you can understand how incredible some of the stuff is. And, and nothing you can say can really, you can give a feeling of what happened, or you can try to explain it. But, in my head, it's like, it's much more than that. And so I can write the stuff, but can I capture the feeling of what was going on? That's something that it's tough, It
is.
But I'm just letting you know, these things do happen, and and they're miraculous and they're amazing. But there's nothing. The problem with a lot of this stuff is sometimes it's a feeling, and sometimes it is, like the hair tussle. How do you prove that? How do you prove any of this stuff? How do you prove that a butterfly landed on your finger and, your aunt or your grandmother, they love butterflies? And it's like this butterfly came out of nowhere in your house, landed on your finger, and was there for a while, and then all of a sudden it took off, and you couldn't find the butterfly again. There's all these things that, and even if you took a picture of it, people would be like, wow, that, is a butterfly. Butterfly can come in, land on you. It doesn't mean it's your grandmother or whatever, But there's also when these things happen, there is also a strong sense of knowing that this is significant for whatever reason. And like I said, people will try to explain this stuff away. I don't believe, we've talked about this before, I don't believe in coincidences. I don't believe in any of that stuff. I believe when things happen, they happen for a reason. And yeah, I think there's a rare occasion where something can happen around the same time as something else. I think that can happen, sure, you know. But I think once you get that feeling and, you know, something happens that, like I said, you can't take a picture of it because it's just a feeling and a sense of knowing. And, you know, like what I was saying, the photograph on the floor, you know, you say, well, it must have came out of a book. And this is where people try to explain. They're trying to find some logic to it. And there is no logic to this stuff. It's just, it happens. It means something to them. I don't think people are reaching. I think it's just, it's there. It's even better when you have somebody else kind of also come to the same conclusion with you.
The latter chapters of this book deal with bona fide witnesses where the two people experience the same thing exactly at the same time.
At the same time, right.
Yeah.
And to me...
And I thought that was very interesting.
That's very interesting.
You know, none of these people are writing in these very personal experiences for any other gain other than the mission of the book is to give people solace.
Right. Well, I think when they were interviewing these people, they probably told them, well, this is for a book we're writing. And, you know, they probably weren't paid. They just kind of just contributed because they wanted to tell their story. And I don't think these people are listed by name. There's nobody here that it's like, you know.
It's first names.
Johnny Songwriter from, you know, Michigan, you know. There's none of that in here. So these people are pretty much anonymous, but they're telling this story because they wanted to tell this story because they think it's miraculous, you know, and all these stories are.
The thing that I feel is if people are bound to refute, well, there's no way you can prove that, or oh, you must have put the photograph on the floor and then forgot about it, or blah blah blah. Then don't listen, don't read it.
Right.
You know, at some point something will happen that, you know, good Lord willing, help you lift up your head and see we live in a not just a purely linear way. And the most fulfilling way to live, while the brief moment that we do have in this human form on planet Earth is spherically anyway. So that's what I believe.
Right. Well, I think some people are ready for it. I think some people are, you know, they're interested in it.
If they want to refute it, then just save your reading for the last several chapters where there are real witness accounts. For example, there's one a group of friends, and they're part of a grief group. They lost a very close friend of theirs. I don't know, Annie, right? And they're all sitting in a circle and they're speaking about, and one of the friends, Jane, okay, is sitting on the floor in the circle, and she's not able to get through the grieving phase, and she's in a bad way and telling how she's not feeling so great.
Right.
And after the session is over and everybody's on their way, one friend says to another friend, "Did anything happen to you this evening?" And the other friend was, what happened to you? And like, I don't know, you. And finally I saw Annie sitting next to Jane while it was her turn to speak, and looking very, very concerned for her friend. They both saw this full body apparition, and those are things that I absolutely am. How can you?
Yeah.
I'm absolutely going to believe something like that. People aren't messing around with their grief. Nobody wants to wallow in that space. They want to find a way to get up and get out and live.
Exactly.
And that's, I think, why they wrote this, kind of why I believe they wrote this book. They put all these things down.
Love from heaven.
Yes, hello from heaven.
Yeah.
That way you can, if you live your life in fear. I have this one really good friend, Brian, and you know how much I love her.
Yes, you do.
And she's very, very dear to me. And she's always had this aspect of her, this very fearful neuroses. And then COVID came along, and either it was the lighter fluid to just really set all those neuroses ablaze, or an excuse to make them valid and really breathe life into them. One or the other. It's gotten off the rails. And I was talking to her the other day, and I said, look, I love you, and I don't mean to be glib, but I want you to live a fuller life. And how can we get to let's think about ways we can get you to that place where you can be freer to live a fuller life and enjoy your life for your family. And I finally just said, look, baby girl, you can't be afraid of living and terrified of dying at the same time. You have to pick one.
She's still choosing.
She's drumming her fingers.
I think that, yeah.
No, and she's this lovely, lovely girl who has so much to contribute to the world and to her family and to herself. And so I think that's why I laud these people for taking this on, because the life lived in fear is not much.
I think when this book came out, there weren't a whole lot of other books about after-death communication. And I believe I've been contacted, and it's not, there's no doubt in my mind. I'm still experiencing stuff like I said, right during this podcast, all of a sudden I'm checking the levels, 1333, and
313 happened.
Yeah,
to
313.
Me the other day.
There you go. And it's just, it happens over and over and over and over again, to the point where there's no possible way. And believe me, yes, I have played those numbers. I have played, and they don't come up.
I don't think that's why there's
no. But I'm just saying, it's not. Those are not common numbers that come up. But they come up for me, and they come up for you.
They now come up for me. They didn't come up.
They didn't come up for you before. Yeah. And
thanks.
So, well, thank you. You thank my dad.
Yeah.
But anyway, but those numbers do come up like almost every day in some weird way. And so, but there's a lot of different things. And I believe it's communication. I believe it's some sort of, hey, Sonny, just thinking of you.
I get bird signs.
You get bird signs. I think a lot of people get bird signs.
A lot of people get bird signs.
I think, but I think with like bird signs and butterflies, and there are people that go, "Oh yeah, I found a penny on the floor. That was good old Papa," or Grandpa. And unless a penny is significant to you, or to them, to me that's not a real thing. But if it keeps happening over and over again, and let's say he collected pennies, I guess that would be of some significance, right? So that's what I'm saying. These things are I could look at it and I could go, well, yeah, that may not be anything, but to that person it may be significant. So I kind of like go, well, if you believe it, you believe that that's him contacting you or her contacting you, then then I believe it too. So, Anyway, this is really a wonderful book. And, I said there's about every single chapter, there's something that relates to me about things. And there's a section called electronic ADCs. And that's interesting to me because I had quite a few of them happen, not to me, but to other people. And then they would call me and they would say, "Oh, you just called me. Is this Frank?" That was my father's name, or that is my father's name. And I would say, "No, it's Brian." And so this would go on and on and on. Different people getting a message from me, from the job I was working at. And they would call me and they would say, "Hi, can I speak to Frank?" And it just kept happening over and over. I can't tell you how many times, hundreds of times this happened. Just really freaky.
And then one day you had a witness to it.
I had a witness to it, yeah. And not just a witness to it, I heard the message that I left. And it was my voice saying, "Hi, this is Frank." But it was my voice.
Freaking me out.
Yeah. And anyway, that's one of the
amazing.
That's one of the stories in the book.
It's amazing.
Which is I'm writing.
And then you said to the woman who was there, "What name did I say?"
Yeah, somebody sitting there.
She said Brian.
Brian. Yeah.
That's so.
Yeah.
I mean, I have also had interesting things. I don't know if I call them ADCs.
Right.
But very inexplicable. It's as opposed to unbelievable.
It's inconceivable. Yes. Just a Princess Bride reference.
Well, I think it's a better word than unbelievable because I clearly do believe you.
Yeah.
And the fact that there was a woman sitting right there who said, "No, that's not Frank, is not what you said."
Yeah, she looked at me. Like I had three heads when I said that. No,
what
it was.
What did you do? What did you do? You had to go out and shake it off.
I just pushed my chair away from the desk, and I said I have to be excused for a little bit, and that was it.
Yeah.
So I was away for maybe an hour. Took an early lunch, something like that. It was, thank you. It was, look, I knew it was incredible before, but what happened was I asked the person that I called, I said, "Could you play back the message?" Because I said, "There's no Frank here. It's just me, Brian." And it doesn't even sound the same. It doesn't, Frank, Brian do not sound the same. It's not like Frank and Tank, or Hank. Hello? Hey, Frank called me? And it's like, no, it's Hank. It's Hank. It's not Frank. Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Or Ryan.
Brian.
Yeah,
right.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
I do. I know.
So that was, no, it's
very different.
No, but it was when I heard my voice say it, and I knew darn well I never called myself Frank in my life. Yeah, it was an emotional moment, and it was also. This is where, and we were talking about this before with doctors and scientists and people that are trying to logically put things together, and it's like, and I sat in my car trying to figure out what the heck happened.
Yeah.
And there is no logical explanation for it. There's just none. Somewhere along the line, I'm going to have a book, and I'm going to write about that, and it's going to give the full color on that.
But undoubtedly, that's going to be a very difficult chapter to write because it's so fraught with how do you put that into words? That's why I respect all these people who wrote in.
Exactly. Explaining it to people. I tried to explain that to my mom, and she was like, "Well, yeah," and she was trying. I'm not going to talk like her, Because I can't. I don't think I can.
I can.
No, that's all right. That's all right. So, no, she couldn't make heads or tails out of it because she was like, well, what do you mean? And I was like, no, this was something that happened that was definitely supernatural. She couldn't grasp it. And I think that's just where people are at. I don't think people, if people can't put it into that box and figure it out, in a logical manner, then it's kind of like, well, that's your imagination, or that's you probably heard it wrong, or maybe somebody else called them with the name Frank, and they kind of so they're trying to.
So they called you back.
Yeah, they're trying to put it into some form to make it have some logic, and that's what I was saying before.
See, that's how people feel about the spirit that is.
You never told us about that.
The one that's in my family home, but everybody else has some sort of problem about it.
The cottage,
the summer cottage
with.
And I don't really seem to. If he wants to turn the light on for me, gee, thanks. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Because it's a dark house sometimes.
Yeah, I've heard some stuff go on there.
I know, you and everybody else. I'm the only one who has like this warm and fuzzy feeling. This is another house on Long Island. This is your. But it's not an ADC, okay? So it's not a.
No.
It wouldn't fall within the Guggenheim's overriding diptych of ADC.
Well, how do we know that?
It's just a C.
How do we know it's not grandpa or auntie or? It didn't resonate for you. that way.
I think that I think there was one instance where it might have been a poltergeist experience in that house. May have been very directly related to an immediate family member, but all the other stuff that everybody feels, I think it's just the house.
You think it's a house or a spirit that's living in the house?
An inhabitant of the home, a non-visual inhabitant of the home. You can hear it and you can feel it, but you can't. I heretofore have not seen it.
I've sensed it. There's
you've
an area.
Heard it and you've felt it.
It's a very warm home, but there's an area.
Very warm home.
But there's an area that's kind of like it almost feels. I don't want to say it's off limits, but it just feels like it's otherworldly. And
it's otherworldly. That's what everybody says. Everybody's like, "Oh, I don't know about that."
Yeah,
but I'm
put
like,
me
over
into another room away from this. No, nothing like that.
I don't feel that way.
Okay. Well, I slept in that house and I heard footsteps go up,
coming up those. Well, yes,
the stairwell.
That setup. It's the service stairs. Right. I think that this house has an inhabitant who truly loves the house. Mm-hmm. They love the house as much as I love the house.
Right.
And that's why I think we're kind of birds of a feather.
They're protecting the house.
I hope so.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Someone has to.
Yeah. And I told you, I think my mother's house is haunted too. And I know my aunt's house in Florida was haunted. There was something going on.
Well, your mother has clearly said that she's
heard stuff.
She's heard things. She will be like just in the middle of dinner, like, oh, pass the asparagus, and she will suddenly come out with another example of activity that just, she'll be like, oh,
it just happened. There was something that floated by here.
The door.
Yeah.
But I don't think that that's an ADC. I think, there are things that are direct communications that are tapping into what the recipient is feeling and grappling with right then and there at that moment. Right then and there.
Exactly.
Yeah. We were we have I don't know if I want to. Nope, not gonna.
You're not gonna say it.
Yeah.
Well, you're gonna have to tell me afterwards.
I will.
You're leaving these poor people hanging. There's all these people listening to this.
It'll eventually. These poor people. No, I can't. It's too much.
Okay, maybe not right now. Maybe in the future.
I've never even told you.
Wow.
My love.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
It's a bird. It's a bird one.
Oh, really?
But it's very
specific.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
people have had that.
Maybe someday. It's not. See, the thing is, my experiences. Yes, they are intrinsic to me, but also they involve my other loved ones, and I have to respect their feelings too.
Okay. All right. That's good. Okay. Well, but you kind of gave us an idea. Not going to take it out of the podcast.
I'm not afraid of these things, but I'm very, very respectful.
Right.
And yeah.
So if you don't know, I'm an animator. And so I've had, I'm a creative guy. I'm not, I don't consider myself I would say I'm a sensitive. I'm not a psychic medium or anything. It's not like, somebody can call me up and say, my Aunt Gertrude, she passed away. Do you have any messages for me? And it's not like I'm going to be able to do that. I can't turn the stuff on or off.
Not like my telepathic powers where the remote control is.
Well, yeah, we haven't had much success with that, but I'm hoping somewhere in the future.
Someday soon.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned, my valued listener.
That's right. Well, that'll be a show unto itself. But no, what I'm saying is I can't turn this stuff on and off, and these people in the book can't turn this stuff on and off either. They're they're being contacted by somebody, and
but while you're not a psychic medium, you definitely have been a recipient to a bevy.
Yeah. So that's why I'm saying maybe
messages.
Sensitive. Maybe I'm sensitive.
You are sensitive, and your mother is, and
yeah,
and because you are, but also because you have a brain that lends itself to, because you are a creator, and you lend yourself more to. That's a possibility.
That's a possibility,
and also the way that I feel, what's paranormal is normal.
Yeah.
That's actually
the
one
name
of
the podcast, back to
paranormal, because we're getting
normal,
right back to paranormal. But that's one of Mr. Guggenheim's pet peeves, is when people call this stuff paranormal, and I am in agreement with him, because he's like, look, this is just life. It's just
a part of us. There are a lot of people that believe that we, if you're Catholic or you're Christian, right, that you have the Holy Spirit in you, and that you're part of the Holy Spirit. So just because you inhabit this body doesn't mean that you're not a spiritual being. It's just that you happen to also have a body.
Well, that's one thing that really gets my knickers in a twist. Is when you have... Here we go.
Yeah. That can be explosive, those
don't
knickers
start
in a twist. Yeah.
But when you have a good Christian who says they don't believe in life after death, and you can't have it both ways.
Have it both ways, right?
No, Christ is like salt. You can add more, but you can't take it away, baby girl.
I think a lot of religions believe in that. They believe in, those stories about people being contacted by people that passed away.
Many religions do.
And I think there's a whole subject that we need to go into on one of these shows, which is astral projection, which I believe I've been able to do at a young age.
I believe that too.
Because, if I think people have had flying dreams, where all of a sudden they're just kind of traveling over the land, not in an aircraft. They're just traveling. And I believe that's a real thing. I think people can do that. And I think I was able to do that at a young age, because I've had those dreams. And but I think as I've gotten older, into my teens and stuff, I didn't have those dreams as much. And so, but I believe that's something that people can tap into and they can do. So we should talk about that. We should have a...
I agree with... I think we should discuss that and get... Because you're the first person who ever mentioned that to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the reason why you mentioned it to me is because you were experiencing what so many other visitors to this summer cottage of my family's experience. And I don't experience it unless I'm asleep.
Astral projection?
No, I'm not professing astral projection.
Oh, okay.
When I told you, everybody else seems to have these experiences. I'm the only one who has love for whatever that energy is.
Right.
And the only time I ever acknowledge it is when I'm dead, sound asleep. And that's when you said, well, have you ever heard of astral projection?
Right.
And I was like, no.
Yeah.
And he said, and you said to me, Brian said, well, maybe it's you.
You never know.
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think I have such a heavy
I don't think you wear heavy boots in your dreams.
I don't wear heavy boots in my dreams.
Well,
but I do have one, and this is also the deja vu aspect.
I've had that.
Yeah. And I know a youngster who's very close to me who has had major deja vu. And we've talked about it, but I used to get it very strongly when I was a small child. And then as I grew into an adult, there's this one place that keeps coming up in my dreams, and it's very detailed and it's very familiar. And I've visited there in multiple seasons, winter, spring, summer, fall.
Right.
And it's always the same place. And when I'm waking up, and I know I have to leave that dream, I'm very unhappy.
Yeah.
And I don't want to leave that place.
Right.
And I don't know why that is. And maybe
I don't know.
One day we'll discuss that.
Yeah, we should discuss that.
Deja
and I think
vu.
I don't know if that's a deja vu thing or
I've
it's something
never
that
seen this place in my life.
Right.
But when I dream about it, I'm very...
You're very happy.
Very happy. I'm very happy.
Maybe it's the place that we go to. Maybe it's that's heaven. Who knows?
Oh, good Lord willing.
Wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah. Oh, I would like that.
God, I'm glad you brought me here.
I hope you come with me.
I'll come with you. We'll have a Corona. Anyway, back to the book. So, how would you rate this book? I think
you know what? Sorry for all of our silly little tangents.
No,
that's why we have.
Well, that's what the show is about.
Yeah.
We talk about stuff, but then we go off on tangents and we talk about stuff that happens.
You and
I and you and me and us and other people
and all y'all.
All y'all, yeah.
But yes, back to this book. It's not something you have to read all. How many pages is this? Some 400 pages.
It's almost 400 pages.
Cover to cover. You can pick it up, pick a spot, read it, put it back down. It's fun and it's interesting and there's spookiness and there's something for everybody.
It's been in print for close to 30 years. And Marjorie's right. You can pick up this book and just open it up to a section that you're interested in.
It's not a commitment.
But I would definitely read the author's foreword and or just the first chapter, which is how they got into this, because it's very important. It puts perspective on it. But then you can kind of leap around and you can do it. I just read it from cover to cover. I just read it straight. And maybe it bounced around to look at different sections, but then I continue to read it,
I bounced around only because each chapter is so rich with examples and experiences. And I was like, well, I want to have a look at this, and then I want to go back and have a look at that. So I bounced around,
Right.
and I thoroughly enjoyed the book, having done so. But you can, hey, you know what? Whatever suits you. But $9.99, you know.
Yeah, $9.99 on Amazon. Can't go wrong with that. And you can probably buy it used on eBay if you like used books.
I like used books.
Yeah, you can probably get it for a few bucks or whatever. It's well worth it. Now, I think I said, I didn't mention this, but I had a copy of this. I bought a copy of this maybe 10 years ago, maybe more, probably more than that. Right around when my father passed away, I think I got it. And then I handed it to my mom, and it was Swiss cheese when I handed it to my mom. And I don't know what happened to it, but it's been read over and over again. I know she read it.
So there's like masking tape all up and down the spine.
I don't think so. I think it's just like the page. It's barely holding together. And we ended up just buying a copy for this podcast just so that Marjorie could go through it and I could go through it again. But it is an excellent book. And I believe all the stuff in here has been vetted well. The stories are just so good. Most people give this between 4 and 5 stars. I don't think it gets a full 5 stars because it's on a scale from 0 to 5. So I don't think it quite gets at the 5th star, but it's somewhere between 4 and 4.5 stars. I think it's an excellent read. I think it's told really well. I think it, they kind of make their case in here. And after this book came out, it's just like everybody started coming out with their own book, about either, there's one by the Burpos, which is basically it's about their son who died, but he came back. He died, he was revived, he came back, and then basically he met Jesus. And there's so many other books out there. We're talking about Eben Alexander, but there's so many other books out there. But this book
was the tipping point, you think?
I think it was, yeah. Because there were books before that by different authors like Raymond Moody and Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who has since passed away.
Elizabeth Kubler-Ross.
Yes.
I said it.
So yes, you did. You did. So there were those books, and then basically the floodgates have opened up, and now everybody and their mother has a book out there writing about these experiences.
And
which
soon you.
And soon me. Well, yeah, mine is going to be it's going to be a mix of a lot of different things that have happened to me. So that will be an interesting read. And I hope that people would like that. But it's not out yet, so I'll let you know when that's happening. So anyway, I give this book, I give this book a 5-star rating. I give it 5 stars because I've seen that. Yeah, everybody else gives it 4, 4.5. I give it 5 stars because it is clearly for the love of the subject and trying to get this information out there because they felt it was important. And that's why you should have a copy of this in your library. Hello from Heaven by Bill and Judy Guggenheim.
I also give it the 5 stars.
Yeah, and it's and like Marjorie said, $10 on Amazon, can't go wrong. $10. Was that a cup of coffee at Starbucks?
For you and half a friend.
And it's not even a venti at Starbucks. So. No. And you can't even buy a McDonald's Happy Meal.
It's an investment in hope. It's an investment in hope.
It is a fascinating read. It's amazing, some of the stuff in here. And so that's why I give it the 5 stars. So, there.
Wait, have we decided what we're going to discuss?
What we're doing next week?
We're kind of, okay, fellas, we've been...
Fellas.
Fellas.
It's just guys.
Friends.
Because they're listening to your beautiful voice. No girls
fellas,
listening to it because they're jealous.
Means that, ladies and gents, we have been in a little bit of a back and forth about what our discussion for next week is going to be. So I'm sorry, I don't want to put anybody on the spot. I had a suggestion, and then you said no because it requires a lot more research than I have the time to do right now, and I agree with you.
What was that?
When you're right, you're right.
What was that about?
Desert energies.
Oh, desert energy. Well, we're going to do that. We're going to do a...
We will.
But I think there's other things that we should talk about, and you have an interest in Bigfoot. So
darn tootin'.
Yeah, we're getting away a little bit from the spiritual stuff.
Enough. Well,
yeah.
Why not? Let's mix it up.
I think we should.
It's the paranormal. It's a very broad...
It's back to paranormal, which is normal.
That's why we're getting back to it.
Back to it. But, I think Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster and stuff like that.
I'm not going to talk. I'm Scottish. I cannot discuss this with you.
The Loch Ness Monster. Okay.
But Bigfoot, Sasquatch, what have you?
Bigfoot, Yeti.
Yeti.
The Yeti.
I can't speak to the Yeti because I've never been to Nepal.
Okay. All right.
But
I can speak about Yeti. It's a wonderful, wonderful tumbler. It's
Okay.
Okay. No, all right. Trying to be funny.
We will continue this engaging and riveting back and forth. What we will discuss next week is not going to be desert energies because Brian was correct. That's a lot. That's a deep dive.
We'll be back with something. So just come back. We'll talk about something.
Back for something.
We're gonna rate all the waters that we think are highly spiritual. Like Deer Park and Golden Geyser, and what are some of the other ones out there?
The one that we had at Saratoga.
Saratoga water. No, we're not going to talk about that.
No, we're not talking about that.
No, but we'll have another interesting.
When we come back next
week,
we'll get back to paranormal.
Back to paranormal,
folks.
That's it. It'll be fun. We're not closing this out yet.
Oh, we're not?
No, we will. Okay, so anyway, this is it. If you want to send us any suggestions for things that we should be covering.
Oh, definitely, please.
Okay, so this is what you're going to do. This show is produced by the Cartoonerific Studios, and so I'm going to spell that out for you because it's going to be in the email that you're going to send us. So this is it. It's back to para, P-A-R-A, and back to, at Cartoonerific, CARTOONERIFIC.com.
It's worth it.
And if you have any suggestions, send it to us, and we will try to accommodate. And if it's not in our wheelhouse, we may not.
Well, why not? That's the whole.
Well, we'll try.
We're open. Back to para at cartoonerific.com.
Back to para.
Para.
Like Tara, but with a P, at cartoonerific.com.
It's wonderful.
And we're going to have a Facebook page, Back to Paranormal. So you can also suggest it on there. You could also
suggestions, questions, criticisms, any of it.
No criticisms.
Well, I want to hear the. Okay.
Oh, you want to hear the criticisms?
I will weed through it, and I'll spare you the criticisms. I will forge forward bravely.
You know what will happen? They'll say, Marjorie, you're great. Mitchell sucks.
No, we want to know all of it because we're here for you.
Okay. We are here for you.
We know you're out there.
Yeah. Let me see what this button does. That's the applause from before.
Oh, that's a delayed reaction.
It's really delayed. A slow audience.
All right.
Anyway, we'll see you all next time. Come back, you hear?
Please.
On Back to Paranormal. Good night, everybody.
Good night.